Hi, Mr. Minnick here, helping students in the AP Java with tracing data types, worksheet number 1. So we've got some code segments that really have no rhyme or reason to them. There's no practical purpose. It's really, to be honest with you, a goal of mine to make sure students understand how to get these right on the AP multiple choice section of that hard national test. But if they ever get employed in the world where they have to write code, these are typical things that come up in coding situations at hulu.com, Snapchat, because I have former students that have told me that this is legit stuff. Okay, so here we have a line of code. Int num1 equals 3. So the variable num1 is equal to 3. I'll keep track of that because I always trace my code. I never keep track of it in my head in these learning situations. That code is executed. The second line of code, 4.2 is from right to left being initialized into the newly declared variable num2. And num2, by the way, is a double, so it can store the 0.2. Unlike num1 that only has a front seat of the car, it can only store the driver 3 and not like somebody in the back seat like 0.2. Just saying. So num2 over here, I'm just going to keep track of it right here, handy dandy on my area of scratch paper, just like on the AP exam, you should keep track of stuff somewhere in the margin of the paper. So I'm putting a 4.2 in there. I'm not keeping track of it in my head, like I said. Okay, so been there, done that. That line of code is executed. Okay, line number 3. It's really like two different behind the scenes things that get executed. The first point of execution is on the right-hand side of the equals. So it's as if there's a set of parentheses here, just saying. Num1 is being added to num2. In some old-fashioned and current languages, computer languages, you would get a type mismatch error because you can't add oil plus water. You can't mix apples and oranges. You just can't do that. The computer wouldn't know how to line up these the decimal places, because the 3 doesn't have a decimal place. It's an int. But in Java, luckily, we can add an int to a double. So it is not an error in Java. But Java behind the scenes promotes the 3 temporarily to a double, even though you didn't use something called casting to do that explicitly. Java will do it for you behind the scenes. So the num1 is temporarily changed to 3.0 just for decimal point alignment purposes, we'll say. This is all happening at the binary level, so it's not really like your math teacher taught you to line up decimal places anyway, but I'm just kind of like washing over that right now. So 7.2 is, at one moment of time, stored in a low-level area of the computer processor. There is a 7.2 there. It was legal. But in the act of trying to initialize the variable num3, which, by the way, now has memory space on the computer that only has the front seat of the car because it's being declared as an int. There is no back seat. So this 0.2, sorry, that friend of my daughter's that I said I could take to the pool today, sorry, we're taking the sports car. There's no back seat for you, kid. So only one person can fit in the front seat with me of the car. At 0.2 will never get stored there. But I have a question. Is just the act of trying to put the 0.2 in there going to cause an error, or does it get truncated? And even if it were 0.9, it would definitely be truncated. I honestly don't know the answer to this, because I think the language C++, which I taught last night at the local college, is different than Java. So I'm not even giving a correct answer here. I'm going to say that the answer is 7.2, that's what prints out, knowing that that's definitely wrong. It's either 7 or error. But in this video, I'm going to purposely write a wrong answer there, but talk out loud, so anybody who fell asleep this early into the video should know better. Okay, moving on to number 2 here in this video. Right away, that causes an error. If you just directly try to put a 3.3 into the front seat of a car that's only an int, I know that Java gives you that error. It's a little different when you're evaluating something up in number 1 and then you try to put that in. See there, I think the answer is 7 to number 1. I know it's not 7.2, I repeat. But it might be an error like number 2 is. But number 2, it's an error. That's how subtle this stuff is. You got to read my lecture notes thoroughly. In the old days when I first taught this course, I don't think I had lecture notes that were like this granular, this like explanatory. And some of this you have to learn like I did, the hard way, by just trying it out in software. Because heaven help you trying to read technical documentation on why Java works the way it does. That's why we have schools and teachers and compiler software, because sometimes it's just not easy to understand. Number three. Well, the first line of code is legal. You can do num1 equals 3. I can put a 3 there. That's an easy one. Line number 2 is easy. I can store 4.2 in the variable num2. That's no problem. That's the way it should be done. I can mix and match oranges and apples there. Num1 plus num2 definitely turns into temporarily a 7.2 stored locally on some like temporary variable behind the scenes. And then the act of putting 7.2 into num3, there's no problem with that because num3 is a double. It can accommodate decimal places because the double data type, that's the whole point. It has 8 bytes of memory rather than 4 bytes like an int. It can store the extra 0.2 there in this case. So line number 4, system out print num3, I have no problem with that one. That was the easiest exercise on this worksheet so far. 7.2 definitely prints out. In number 4, you can't begin a variable name with a digit. No computer language, hardly ever, allows for that. So that's an error. And I'm not going to write error here because I don't want to give away that one. That one should just be easy. You don't even have to read my lecture notes to know that. If you took the prerequisite course called Intro to Computer Science as only a 9th grader here at YMissing. But sometimes seniors at some schools learn this in their senior year in a course like this. Number 5, you can indeed declare 2 variables and initialize them on the same line of code in Java. The AP authors don't like doing that. I don't like doing it for style reasons. But if it's just a matter of saving space in your coding environment, then I guess I'll give it to you. You can do that. But notice that the word int does apply to both num1 and num2. You do not type the word int here a second time where I'm waving my mouse. That would actually give you an error message. Now you could put a semicolon there, and then you would have to put the word int here, and you can have 2 statements on the same line of code in Java. You can do that. I think you can do it in Python if you use a colon. Different languages have different rules of expression like this. I don't want to get into detail, but I only mentioned Python because it's the prerequisite course here at YMissing for this course. Anyway, number 5, that's all legit. You can do this right-hand side of the equals in this where I'm waving my mouse. I see no problem with 5. I don't want to give away another free answer except to tell you it is not an error. Number 6, now that is an error. You can't just say, oh, I want num2 to be an int, kind of like up here in number 5, num2 is an int. You have to initialize local variables with some value in this code segment. In this situation, the right thing to have done would have been to at least put a 0 there if you don't know what else to put in there. It'll give you a compile error if you don't put something in there. Now, there are languages, again, like C++, that would put a garbage value in there. Basically, whatever's in the memory of the computer at that memory cell, that unknown number is put there. Some basically garbage, randomish number. Forensically, we can figure it out if we're on CSI computer version. But in Java, they put zeros in other situations. You get a free 0, like if it's a property declaration in a class, which we haven't studied yet. You would get a free 0 there if it were like private int num2. But here you don't. So I'm pretty sure this is an error, but you should explain why, blah, 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 blah. Because in my directions, for full credit, you got to explain. Not just say, take the cheap way out and say error. Number 7, that's easy peasy. I'm not doing that one. Number 8. Number 8. We've seen this in an intro course that num1 is 3. And because on this line of code it comes after the first line of code, that 3 that's currently stored there is being plugged into num2. But num2 now has a copy of the 3, which is also known as 3. They're not sharing the same number 3. It's technically two different binary 1-1s in two different areas of the memory of the computer. So when you change this num1 to 5 on this third line of code, it's crossing this 3 out, making it 5, but is not affecting this photocopy. This is like a separate piece of paper. If you get your physical for, like, say, volleyball, and you spilled coffee on it, hopefully the doctor back at the doctor's office has another copy, because you just ruined a signature that you might have to now go have another physical taken. Rule of thumb, always make photocopies of stuff. Now, sometimes photocopies work, and they count. Oh, what a trickster I am. I'm asking you to print out num2, not the num1 that just got the 5. I'm asking you to print this one out. Always pay attention to Minix variable names and the AP exam people and your coworker out there in the real world, because sometimes they make logical mistakes. Number 9, follow the order of operations, please. You do this subtraction before you do this addition. Everybody knows that. It's please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, where the A and the S are tie, and you work from left to right. So I'm going to, and if you were copied and pasted this into an online compiler, it would probably give you error messages. You need straight quotes. So I'm not doing this one. And this is a modulus. So 33 mod 5 leaves a remainder of 2. 2 times -3 is -6. I think the answer there is -6. I'll give that one as a freebie. Good luck with that worksheet. Was I wrong? Oh, the remainder is 3. Yeah, not 3 times -3 is -9. Is that the correct answer? Bright student in my 2018 class? Okay, so -9, if you can read that, is the right answer there. And that's Minix signing off on this worksheet, this video.